There's a black powder that costs less than $2 a pound. It turns dead, exhausted soil, poisoned by decades of chemicals, into one of the most fertile surfaces on the planet. And it lasts more than 2,000 years without ever needing to reapply. It's not a fertilizer you buy every season. It's not a chemical amendment your soil ends up needing like an addict needs a fix. It's not something that washes out with rain or fades in the sun. One application, centuries of results. Archaeologists found it still working in Amazonian soils that were treated before Columbus was born. Let me say that again. Before Columbus was born. I'm Waldo, and if you're not subscribed yet, this is the moment. Because here, you won't find what they sell at garden centers. Here, you'll find what they buried. Subscribe and hit the bell. The global fertilizer industry moves over $230 billion a year. Pesticides, another $80 billion. pH correctors, nitrogen supplements, microbial activators add another $40 billion annually. Every single one of those products is built on one silent assumption. Your soil will always need more. Now imagine a material that makes your soil permanently self-sufficient, that builds inside your earth a microbial ecosystem so complete it never needs to be rebuilt, that you pay for once and watch your garden outperform your neighbors who spends hundreds every season on brand name products. That's not fantasy. It's a documented reality, confirmed in laboratories, verified in the field, that has been growing silently in the jungle for 2 millennia. It wasn't banned. It wasn't disproven. It was simply buried. This is the story of biochar, the agricultural secret that Amazonian civilizations mastered 2,000 years before anyone patented a bag of fertilizer. Let's go back to 1542. A Spanish conquistador, Francisco de Orellana, pushes his expedition deep into the Amazon basin. His maps describe the zone as savage jungle, hostile territory for any form of agriculture. His soldiers expect to find nothing. Orellana expects the same. What he finds stops him cold. Cities. Enormous settlements stretching for miles along the river. Populations his chroniclers estimate in the millions. Cultivated fields as far as the eye can see, producing food in the middle of what, by all agronomic logic, should be a nutritional desert. Because here's what any modern agronomist can confirm. The soil of the Amazon rainforest, chemically speaking, is nearly useless for cultivation. The nutrient cycle in the jungle happens above, in the canopy. The trees hold everything together. When a leaf falls, its nutrients recycle almost immediately. The actual soil beneath your feet is thin, acidic, red, nearly dead. Strip the trees from that ecosystem, and you're left with clay that hardens like brick in the sun and washes like dust in the first rain. Slash and burn agriculture in the Amazon exhausts a plot in 2 or 3 years. Then you abandon it and burn another. So how was Orellana seeing permanent cities, permanent agriculture, populations that had been eating from the same earth for centuries? The answer was buried under his boots. A dark, nearly black soil, rich and deep, extending several feet down in some areas. The locals had a name for it. They called it Terra Preta, dark earth. If you're finding value in this, hit the like button. Because what comes next is the science that changes everything. When European scientists finally analyzed Terra Preta in the 20th century, they couldn't explain what they were seeing. The microbial activity broke the charts. The carbon levels were absurd, and the most baffling part, the soil was improving on its own. Left alone, Terra Preta expands. It regenerates. It converts the exhausted red soil around it into more Terra Preta, slowly, over the years. For decades, they assumed it was ancient compost, fish remains, animal bones, ceremonial waste, until someone ran a carbon dating test and the numbers came back wrong. The carbon in Terra Preta was thousands of years old, but it wasn't decomposing, it wasn't degrading, it wasn't ordinary organic carbon. It was something completely different. Something Europeans didn't understand for 400 years. It was biochar. And if that word means nothing to you yet, that's exactly what the industry wanted. Because when you understand in the next few minutes what's actually happening inside a single particle of this material, you'll understand why they've spent a century making sure you never heard it. Let's start with how it's made. When you burn wood in a normal fire with plenty of oxygen, the carbon leaves. It becomes carbon dioxide and water vapor, goes up to the sky, lost. That's what every farmer who's ever lit a fire has done. But when you heat that same wood between 600 and 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit in an oxygen-starved environment, a process called pyrolysis, something completely different happens. The wood doesn't burn, it transforms. The volatile compounds escape as gas, but the carbon skeleton stays, and that skeleton becomes a microscopic structure of almost unbelievable complexity. That's the difference between making ash and making biochar. Oxygen or no oxygen. Burning or transforming. The Amazonians knew it. We forgot. And now the number that changes everything. A single gram of quality biochar contains between 200 and 400 square meters of internal surface area. Did you read that right? 1 gram. The surface area of 4 tennis courts compressed into a piece that fits between 2 fingers. Subscribe right now, because understanding that surface area is understanding why a $230 billion industry never wanted you to hear this word. That surface is the key to everything. Soil microbiology is dominated by organisms so small that the spaces between soil particles are their entire world. Bacteria, fungi, archaea, all the microbes that make soil truly fertile, don't live in the open dirt. They colonize surfaces. They build communities in protected microenvironments where rain can't wash them away and sun can't dry them out. Biochar delivers that environment in a way nothing else on Earth can match. Each particle is millions of microscopic caves. Fungal networks weave through the tunnels. Bacteria colonize the walls. Beneficial microorganisms that in ordinary sandy soil would wash away in the first rain find permanent homes here. And here's the point that changes everything. Biochar doesn't feed the soil. It houses the organisms that feed the soil. That distinction is everything. Feeding requires continuous inputs. Housing is a one-time investment. If you add synthetic nitrogen, you get a nitrogen spike followed by a crash. Your plant eats, but the soil doesn't improve. If you add biochar, you build infrastructure. Fungi arrive and extract phosphorus from mineral particles that roots could never reach alone. Bacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into plant food. Predator organisms appear because now there's enough population to sustain them. That's why Terra Preta expands. The microbial ecosystem it houses starts transforming the neighboring soil, year after year, without anyone touching the earth again. And there's a chemical bonus. The biochar surface carries a massive negative charge. That means it retains cations, the positively charged nutrients that rain normally washes away. In sandy soils, nitrogen leaching drops by up to 50%. That's keeping in your soil half the fertilizer that's currently draining into the subsoil every time it rains. And the duration. Carbons dated in Amazonian Terra Preta show ages between 2,000 and 8,000 years. The biochar you bury today will be structurally intact and biologically active long after every person alive on this planet has disappeared. One application, centuries of effect. A meta-analysis from Wageningen University in 2019 that reviewed over 120 independent field studies found average yield increases of 15 to 25% across all soil types. In degraded tropical soils, increases reached 50%, and those yields maintained or improved each following season without reapplying the biochar. A product like that doesn't get promoted, it gets marginalized. Now let's build it this weekend with what you already have in your yard. The pit method, the simplest approach. Dig a hole in your yard about 18 inches deep and 12 inches wide. Build a wood fire in the bottom and let it establish well until you have a strong bed of embers. When the embers are glowing red, start feeding dry biomass in small quantities. Wood chips, pruning scraps, dry stalks, nutshells, fruit pits, any combination works. The goal is not for it to burn with flame. The goal is for it to glow and smoke. Enough heat to release the volatiles. Enough oxygen restriction to prevent it from becoming ash. You'll recognize it by sight. When the material is well carbonized, black and crunchy but not gray, it's time to stop the reaction. Smother it. Cover it with a sheet of metal or douse it with water. That locks the carbon structure before it oxidizes in the air. What you have in that pit is biochar. Porous, carbon-dense, ready. Application rate for long-term soil building, between ½ pound and 1 pound of biochar per square foot, incorporated into the top 12 inches of soil. One time. Not seasonal treatment. You're installing infrastructure. For pots and containers, mix 15 to 20% biochar by volume with your potting mix. For established beds, spread it on top and work it in with a broad fork without aggressively turning the soil. But before you apply it, the critical warning that almost nobody explains well. Fresh biochar applied directly to soil will temporarily steal nitrogen from your plants. All those porous caves are like empty sponges. They'll fill with available nutrients from the soil before they start giving them back. You'll see your plants yellow. You'll think something went wrong. Nothing went wrong. You just missed a step. The solution is ancient and simple. Charge the biochar before applying it. Take your biochar and mix it with any rich organic material. Mature compost is ideal. Well-aged manure works excellently. Even a strong compost tea poured over the char and left to sit for 2 to 4 weeks achieves the same result. The microbial life and nutrients from the compost colonize the biochar surface, filling the sponges before they enter the soil. When you apply charged biochar, it enters your earth already alive, already working. Instead of stealing, it contributes from day one. That's the step the Amazonian civilizations mastered, and it's the step almost no internet tutorial explains. Now you know it. The civilizations that built Terra Preta are gone. Their cities disappeared under the canopy. Their languages were lost. Their knowledge of medicine, architecture, navigation, government, all dissolved with them. But the soil they prepared survived. Not because they built monuments, not because they wrote books, but because they changed the fundamental chemistry of the ground beneath their feet in a way that lasted longer than everything else they created. That's a particular kind of wisdom our civilization has almost forgotten. The wisdom of permanent investment. The understanding that what you do to the earth today will be inherited by your children and by strangers and by people who will never know your name 2,000 years from now. If this video opened your eyes, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who's still throwing money at bags of fertilizer every season. Every person who sees this and makes a pit of biochar this weekend is one less customer in that cycle. I'm Waldo. Take care of your soil,